Hi everybody, I'm River. I'm here to present how to affect the future of the C++ standard in 90 minutes. This catchy and YouTube-friendly title is suggested by David, and I just copy-pasted it directly. So that was fantastic. That title is horrifyingly hard to come up with. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. If anybody hadn't aware of this fact yet, I'm a new grad from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. The reason I have to lay this all out is because in a previous presentation I said U of M, and people ask if I've come from Minnesota. So, that person might be in the room. No, they're not in the room. And this is my first time at CVP now. I have been spying on everybody by watching a ton of YouTube of CVP now for a long time. And I actually started this when I was in high school and was watching Java conferences. And I'm very excited to finally be here and do a talk. And
we're excited that you're here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And this will also be my first long-time talk, so a full session talk. So if I seem overly nervous, I'm sorry. I'm a core contributor to the Beman Project. I pulled the stats yesterday, and I think by commit count, Denmark is higher than me, and then Denmark is the first by commit count, me is second, and Steve is the third. So I'm good at something, I guess. And I'm also, if nobody realizes this yet, I'm looking for new opportunities. I'm a fresh new grad, so if you guys need a very good junior dev, let me know. And special thanks to the student volunteering program, because if it's without this program, I wouldn't be able to come here. Thank you for covering not only my travel expense and gave me a place to sleep, but also created like a very connected young crowd community for me to make jokes with. And so please consider donating to the student volunteer program. And also Bob is awesome. And also I want to lay out who I'm not yet, because I think this kind of gives a little bit more fresh perspective on what Beman Project is, and you will see this very soon. So I'm not an Ohio State graduate. Okay, yes, somebody in this room gets the joke. Thank you. Okay, and I'm not a C++ developer with decades of experience. I'm only 23, so I can, if I start coding by 13, I might have a decade of experience, but I don't know what I was playing with back then. I'm also not an ISO member, so I actually don't know the ins and outs of how standardization works. And so I'm approaching this as like a very outsider perspective. And also, I'm not employed yet. And I want to start this by going to a completely relevant topic, that is urban planning. Because I come here 2021, and I'm kind of baffled by, in a sense, how horrible new US urban landscape is. Everything is giant roads, car parks, and if you want to go from residential area to a commercial area, it's a 5 minutes drive, 30 minutes walk, and somehow 50 minutes by bus. I don't even know how they do that. So, and the city looks like this. I thought this is the land of the great, and I was really interested in this as like an area of study. And turns out this, of course, is an area of study. This is called urban planning, and it's actually a very complicated one. It's a mix between sociology and engineering, and they are unfortunately kind of underpaid. What I derive from what my observations at urban planning is that it is very important. It's like your local municipality. Everybody ignores them, but they are, I think, the most important part of the government system. They affect everybody, and they make the most local decisions. So, for example, this conference room we are sitting right now wouldn't be a thing if some developer some decades ago brought a planning document for this site to go to the city council or the planning organization in the local government, and they'd be like, can't build this here, and they come back and forth 3, 4, or 5 years of permit because the thing's broken. But there is a reason for this to exist. And because and this is actually a really hard subject, because this requires both long-term visionary planning. So for example, if you look at New York's old pictures, the old subway systems extend far into the countryside. That is all farms back then. And we all know that it is everything within the subway system is like at least developed, right? So whoever who designed the system is gotta be very visionary to be bold to say, oh, I'm gonna make this much of investment. And fun fact, Grand Central was deemed as too out of the city when it was built. But it also needs practical investment because in reality, you cannot afford a lot of planning for the future, right? Because it's very expensive in a sense, and it costs time, it costs energy, and then might not work out. It's a bet to the future that this thing that we make convenient for the future will actually come true. And it's really hard to revert bad choices. So like let's say a highway in front of your house is underutilized and it could be replaced by a 2-lane road. It's gonna be damn hard to replace that highway because you have to have a bunch of people plan it and engineer it, and you have to go through like people shouting that this is gonna cut 2 minutes, this is gonna add 2 minutes to their trip, and they have so much time that they think they have so little time that they think that's actually useful, and it makes or breaks a place in a sense because. I think this is a framework-wise thing, right? So it's not the deciding factor, but how well your lived environment is, I think, kind of is the backdrop of everything. I think if we look at this conference, having such a beautiful backdrop is probably why they choose this place. One of the reasons. Is it? Okay, I'm right on something else. And I forgot to put another bullet point, is we think them produces a desired place that is designed and like they design the buildings, they design how stuff's gonna look like. But in reality, the product of urban planning is a very thick book of planning frameworks and policy decisions, because this is kind of a policy thing. And so we have seen the hellscape of urban planning, of the result of urban planning from 1960s, 1950s. And everybody knows this thing's kind of broken. We need to fix it, right? There's no way that we're gonna live in a place like this. Even if you like to drive cars, there is something locally that frustrates you. So right now, the way that they engage public, so to ask for feedback, is this thing called a public engagement meeting. I'll get this thing down very soon. Don't sleep yet. So it is basically asking everybody, is this a good idea for everyone? Usually it's hosted by city officials at parks, at libraries. And this is key to the working of the system. Because if you only have expertise, you only have experts that's making the planning decision, you have somebody like Robert Moises who just, do anybody know him?
Robert Moses.
Yes. You have giant highways that just go through huge amount of neighborhood and stuff that looks really dystopian from hindsight. So there is the public engagement meeting is obviously not working. Otherwise, I think we will be in a much better place by now because, well, it currently sucks. Why I think, from what I've seen with the public engagement meeting, is the lack of accessibility. Because people usually don't drive 10, 15, 30 minutes to their local library, if they even know where that is, to attend a city official meeting where it's a dude standing in front and being the only enthusiastic one and talk about something for an hour, and just for you to be like, okay, I have no idea about this, but I'm not against it. Time to go back home. Oh, that's a spoiler. Okay. And so you don't really understand the plan, because the plan is the planning framework. It's idealized policy-wise what this place look like. It could be we want commercial here, but that could be from like a farm stand to something that's only gonna happen in Manhattan, like 100-story building or something. They can technically restrict that, but you need kind of to understand how urban planning works to understand that. And you also don't know really how a plan works out. Maybe it's a fantastic plan, but the builder come over and build really ugly houses. And everybody thinks it's urban planning's fault, and they well. And so this results in engagement from highly opinionated individuals. From what I observed, these are two crowds. One is old people who don't want to see change and they have a lot of time. And one is young people who also have a lot of time because they don't want to go to school, or they are actually very passionate about changing their stuff, that they kind of have more on the radical side of progressive. So you get a very extremist result from this. Okay, I'm finally pulling back a little bit here. So language evolution. I think everybody can see the commonality here, right? Language evolution affects everybody, at least within this language domain. So even if it's a proposal that you are not using, like a stuff that you are not using, it's very likely that it got changed somehow by transitively breaking into your assumptions about how the language works, how the standard library works. And also requires long-term visionary and practical investment, because for some stuff, you need to do it incrementally. But for others, like for example, context sphere is kind of an example of where we will progressively put more stuff into the context sphere. But there are also stuff that requires like a huge paper. Again, I'm not an ISO member, so I don't know so this is what I observe is you have like 200-300 pages worth of papers that maybe is about like the new execution model and how we're going to do networking. You cannot incrementally implement this. And it's really hard to revert bad choices. I think everybody in the room have something in C++ that they hate. And when you go talk to a standardization guy or gal, and they were like, yeah, but because of this and that, and because we don't want to break these and that, we're like, just remove it. And they'd be like, no, it doesn't work like this, kid. And also, I think it makes or breaks the language. Since David Stanko here, I would like to reference his talk earlier about Rust C++ interop, where I think his point of standardization working effectively to bring features that younger folks like me kind of are interested in or reduce the complexity of language, kind of drive people away from the language. I know the C++ is going to be gone crisis has happened multiple times, but I remember watching David Sanko's talk when he says when he was a kid, C++ was a cool new thing. I'm pretty sure for people who's like 5 years younger than me, 8 years younger than me, and people at my age, C++ is not the cool things. It's something that you eventually like it because, I don't know, I do. And also, there's a fifth point. The product is also a very heavy book. I think the last time I checked is 1,500 pages. That's like, you can kill somebody with that, for lack of better analogy. So, okay, then we think of this like public engagement in the sense of standardization. This is a lot easier to do, right? Because, okay, we are writing standards for people who are mostly experts or at least have experience on how to design libraries, because we are paid, I'm not being paid yet, but we're paid to design basically libraries and interfaces that model business ideas. So people are familiar with, like, they should understand what this means. And they are also more concretely observable. Like, for example, I maintain in-place vector, and this is a very observable thing that it's a vector-like class where these are the functions, and ideally you want to just be able to jump around and play with it. And it's not like you need to build a whole building for it, right? And we already have like 1 to 2 decades of people building and distributing their favorite pet project to everybody, and some of them get really big for like couple decades, and we're really good at building infrastructure. Even though I hate GitHub Actions, but we are pretty good at like displaying them online. Like right now, it's GitHub. Before it was SourceForge. Okay, that was a bad example, but we typically know where to look. And there are very modern tool chains that provide feedback instead of going to the planning meeting and stick a sticker on the board that you don't really know what that sticker means, we have GitHub issues and we have angry people shouting at poor open source contributors about how their change it broke their system. And I want us to stand back and like think, how do we explore a new library? For example, I have heard this library of FMT. What do I do to understand it? I look it up on Google, and there's usually a quick installation guide or a quick start guide, right? So that will be an easy example to like demonstrate what this library is doing. And there's still 30 more tabs to go through, but no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna try out the thing that's in the demonstrating example because that's like usually the most common use case. And usually that links you to a GitHub. Well, usually it's a GitHub page, and you can see the system and the README. You can just clone it. I've been told by Brad Brown that you will disconnect your internet, but I don't really do that. And start playing around with it and try to see if this fits into your pet project, right? So why does language evolution doesn't work like that? Why can't I just like have like a idea of, oh, I heard this new feature in C++ that's gonna be proposing to the standard library, and why can't I just find like a GitHub repo of this happening? Because this is essentially doing the same thing, right? It's just a more generalized version of FMT that everybody needs to ship. And I think there's great accessibility difficulty here in language evolution. I think, and I've been, is it red pill or blue pill by Lisa, that realizing that the standard library produces that very thick book that is actually to describe what basically standards to describe what a library look like. This is not really the way we navigate around people saying, hey, I have a cool project, come check us out. And yes, okay. And so this is where the Beman Project comes in. And I think like there are other reasons for Beman projects that I don't think I'm qualified to explain because I don't really understand the underlying system. And there are other ways that there are other facilities that also try to provide like a quick like a let's look library as library perspective into this. And I've been told that they are not good because I'm supposed to be advertising the Beman Project. But I really think that this principle is not being widely used enough, and Beman Project is a really exciting place that we are open to everybody, that everybody can come on and put their project onto it and be like, hey, did you know I implemented the new standard library feature and I changed it. So 10 years later, you're gonna suffer that, and I'm gonna keep bugging you about that. And besides getting myself a little bit too much, so I wanna provide a quick explanation of what the Beman Project actually is. So from like a Google search wise, right? You look at it as a collection of library proposal implementations ready for production. So that is, we're literally a GitHub organization, and libraries are just generic GitHub repos. And we like all the other hopefully responsible organization, we strive to make the language very high quality. But we have an actual interest is that we would like people to provide feedback, because this is something that once it's set in stone, it's really hard to change. So we do that by ensuring in our core principle to all the libraries should be highest quality possible. It's reviewed by experts. It's done in a beautiful way, and it is production ready in the sense that not only can you try it out in your pet project and in your, but you can also, if you don't mind the API changing a little bit, put it into a production or near production environment. because those are the environment that this library will eventually decay into. It's a standard library facility. So we really need to look for those feedbacks. And another core principle that we do that is we use industry standard technologies. Again, GitHub, CMake, and GitHub Actions. I don't like it. And but this is kind of cold, right? Like if you point at me and say, "Oh, you're the library maintainer of," okay, I actually done that to a lot of people. Okay, so just by looking at Beman as like a group of libraries, it's kind of cold because the libraries are a bunch of like characters that there's no characters behind them. Yes, that was a good one. And we are also a welcoming community of folks who's interested in advancing C++ standard. And so here I intentionally want to point out that they don't have to be experts. Like somebody like me who I was working on Beman Project after I saw the presentation of CVPCon by Debugging of Beman.net, and I joined as a senior in college, and I am nowhere near a C++ expert. And coming to this conference kind of very much convinced me that this is very hard to achieve. So, but we are so everybody is welcome here. There's actually a lot of things you can be doing, and I think this is actually a really good project for students. I will talk about that a little bit later. And the core principle here is we are a welcoming and inclusive community because we want more people to come in, and we want more people to try out the libraries, to propose their libraries, to critique on the libraries, so we can have a network effect of the proposal gets better, more people use it as preview, and more people coming and learn more about the language, learn more about the project, learn more about the library. And they propose more things, and they refine more things that drives a network effect out. And I think there's three main sources of feedback that we're looking for. And the first one is library authors. If you have not implemented, I'm very encouraging students to, if you have not implemented a standard library construct to paper, it is actually, I wouldn't say it's really hard, but there are a lot of sharp edges that only shows up when you look at it from like a language perspective. I famously was complaining about this when I was first learning C++. The first major language that helped me a lot on growing as like a programmer was Java, and a really big reason that I was able to grow so much is because I can just jump into the standard library of Java, and everything is fantastically written. That's how I learned how an array list, which we call vector, works, how a generic linked list, which we call list, works, and even for more complicated stuff, I'm digging it in, and they're really high quality code, and they influence my coding style, and it really told me what good code looks like. There are horrible parts of Java SDK, but hell, have you jumped into your standard library implementation before? That is a hellscape dotted by double underscores. God. So it is actually really challenging to implement those. And for library, so we are looking for feedback from library authors, because just implementing a paper kind of tells you a lot about if this is a good paper. Because a lot of times you dream about a solution so nice, and it's like, I'm dreaming about, oh, this is how I'm gonna get A+ this semester. And you are on the executive branch, and you're like, oh, this is actually not working out. And the second stream of feedback we're mainly looking for are just people, like, not necessarily have to be associated with a library that just hangs out as a community, like just flowing around and sometimes look back at the forum, jump in, and contribute to a conversation. Those people are also very valuable because sometimes they know about like a language more than like the little parts of the language more than you do, and sometimes they can, and a lot of times I think those are the people that are fantastic for, hey, I have a language proposal. and I have never tried this, or even if I'm a very smart person, can you double check this for me? Post it in the discourse, and that person comes up and says, oh, you need to consider this, that, oh, this has been already proposed before, you can trace around that. These kind of generous experts or just like technical person is also very helpful on like educating this, because implementing standard library is actually very general. You need to know a lot of edges of the library. And we also just are looking for people who, as I said, just put them into their pet projects, their pre-production environments, or their like close to production environment, or if they really want to live on the edges, the production environment. Those are obviously welcome suggestions. So this is kind of my way to approach our mission statement. This is the official mission statement. While the Beman Project is to support the efficient design adoption of the highest quality C++ standard libraries. So implementation experience, that is the library implementer folks. User feedback, that is people who dare to shove them into their pet projects because they care about the future, or they're interested. And technical expertise, so people just, they don't have to be, the three groups doesn't have to be distinct. They can be the same person, and they can provide comments on like new proposals, new ideas. So this is kind of an idealized way of looking at language evolution with Beman Project. So now this becomes relatively a more accessible way of understanding the future of our language and influencing the future of the language. Because we package language proposals as just a library proposal that somebody is really excited, and as they should be, to push it. It's the only thing difference is they're pushing it into the standard library, and we really need to get this thing completely right before we call the shots, right? And this provides an accessible feedback for this provides an accessible place for feedback and discussion. Everything is open to the public, GitHub issues, discourse, no more mailing list, and trying to understand what is behind a decision. Because if we do everything online, there are breadcrumbs. So people who are interested can just come in and read through the threads and understand where this thing is going. And also, like, I'm pitching this as a very grand schema of you should come to Beman Project because you care about the future, or you want to be the smartest person in the room. Man, it's kind of what I'm saying here, but I think this is also a great place just to learn C++. And there are a lot of like C++ language-related domain experts in this community I think we'll find fascinating to talk to. Like personally, I'm interested in tooling, and just hearing Eddie and Brett Brown chat about CMake was fascinating to me. And implementing C++ standard all of them, and in a sense, you are kind of controlling your future, which is really cool. And so this is just throwing stuff out here. This is how we usually meet. We meet on GitHub, so issue threads, PR threads, and we have a discourse. So that is a forum. You can jump in and you can make posts. And we also have a weekly sync where you can see us not face-to-face, but the closest to face-to-face, and hear me occupying the half of the agenda. Anybody interested? Did everybody got this? Okay. So I'm transitioning from. So I think it's pretty clear, or I hope it's pretty clear. If it's not clear, please let me know what Beman Project is, and what my pitch for Beman Project is, and why you should ideally join. Is there any questions regarding that? Does everybody know what Beman Project is now? At least conceptually? Okay, good. So I'm gonna look back at what have Beman Project done lately. This project is officially 1 year old by yesterday, and I found maybe it's a little bit earlier than this, but a Beman Project /Beman is our central documentation, and this is where we put our core guidelines, code of conduct, that kind of library. So I think this is the anchor of the Beman project, if not the kind folks here. So we can see Brad Brown at Tuesday, so maybe there's something done on Monday. April 30th, I think it's 2024 very obviously, at 2:17 p.m. created the initial commit of the Beman project where the seed is laid. And after that, we actually got...
It was 12:17.
Oh.
Time zones.
Oh.
Ah.
Oh, that makes sense. That's a library in a week. Okay, I was wondering.
It was on New York time. But
Okay. It's the first mistake among the most. And we actually got a lot of, or at least I think, we got a lot of, like a lot of people are interested to us that they shove a lot of stuff our way, and we really start like bootstrapping this community. Like the network effect is yet to be made to be like very, very strong, but we are definitely at a very good starting point. We have 16 libraries. Technically, there are like the Beman meta library, meta repo and infra, but you can call it 14 if you really want to nitpick. And there has been 2,400 commits. So if you think about it, that is like, what, 7 commits per day? And 272 issues, and 572 pull requests, 44 distinct contributors. Thanks for everybody who contributed. And for people just hanging around, we have created 111 Discord threads, which some of them contains me just ranting about stuff and nobody reading it. And also 37 Discord members who potentially have saw that and decide to not reply to me. Why is the slides over here? Okay, so I want to point out that this is something that was not expected. I think we are actually doing better than a generic, not generic, like a random pet projects or somewhere between pet project and major project library. Is that we have we have the ability and we have the expertise to be able to package stuff into Compiler Explorer. And once we have our packaging figured out, maybe this can be like for all the packages. Right now, you can do some magic on Compiler Explorer and you can start hacking with optional iteratory interface, any view, in-place vector, NAT execution, without even downloading anything or without like really doing a lot of the GitHub stuff. And I think this is fantastic because every time I see people arguing on Reddit, they always put a Galbot link, so I can see more people arguing on Reddit now. And we can see that we are targeting a variety of near-term, mid-term, and long-term goal of standardization. And this is non-exhaustive, and I am not sure because some of them are in planetary stages, and so it's not set in stone yet. We were kind of late on jumping onto the C++ 26 trend in the sense that we don't, like right now it's feature freeze, so you only have like 1 year to start this. So we didn't really, we have contributed some like ideas into it, but it is not like a lot of input into it because see a lot of libraries are still for 26 where the feedback period is technically kind of gone. And but we can see some of them slip through and they are now targeting 29. I think AnyView is mentioned by Patrick and as a talk, and UTF-View is here made by Eddie. I was trying to understand it and I realized Unicode is really hard. And Beman Scope is kind of something bootstrapped by Jeff that will be interesting logistic-wise to create like a generic scope guard. And we also have project that we're using internally that decides to rethink and wait for the future a little bit because there's a long visionary ideas coming up. Okay.
I do think it's important to mention that I do have a lot of appreciation, but the execution project is being started by Eric Nibler and others on GitHub repos. I just want to, like, I'm not saying just
Okay.
to give you like a bit of the history there, it's not like a Beman initiative. Someone that had their own repo, and Beman does have implementation to expand with, but I did want to make sure that this credit is like,
Okay.
it's important to make sure that it's clear. It's Eric Nibbler,
Okay.
Baker, and other Kirchhoff that is around here,
Okay.
and quite a lot of other standard receivers authors have been working on this for a while.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to add to that. Like, it's worth noting that C++ 26 isn't over.
It's a feature freeze.
It's a feature freeze,
Yeah.
but there's still work going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So implementing these things, like having an independent implementation of execution, for example, shows some we'll find bugs sometimes. Sometimes those are design bugs. That goes back to the ISO process, and they talk about is it a specification bug? And that's actually very important because there's still time to fix those bugs.
I agree.
So, like, just so you know, like, it's not done, but the fact that we have these libraries is actually really helpful.
Okay. We are as helpful as we always are, and yes, there are also other people who contribute. We are not the sole. To be clear, we're not the sole person or group who thought about we should implement papers and put them in GitHub repos. And these are really good ideas, and I do think you should also watch out for them. And yes, Alec.
I have an actual question.
Yes.
So what's the difference between Beman optional and stood optional?
It's an optional range.
I will talk about that as a highlight. And you missed Steve's talk on I think Tuesday.
Possibly. All right.
You will see the title card, and when the YouTube comes up, there will be a tag over there. I hope that will link to that.
The short answer is it adds some features to optional that fix some edge cases.
Okay.
Stood optional is just adding the ability to be arranged to the stood optional. So this is not like optional is already in the standard. This is the ability to
Additional
have it
papers.
as a range. So it's maybe the name could be more indicative.
An extension of optional?
Or
Yeah,
what's
it's
called-
extension.
yeah.
It's adding ability.
It used to be called optional 26, as in like what's the C++ 26 version of optional, but we dropped it. We shortened the name for various reasons.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess the answer for your question is to listen tight, and I will quiz you later on. And okay, so I think these are good points. There are still very much value on the feedback side of it, but I wanna. The reason I'm phrasing it like this, I'm sorry if I made these projects look not as important as they are. I'm sincerely sorry. But I think by implementing these projects, we actually are able to set in stone some of our policy choices. And later on, we'll be talking about like a lot of infras for how stuff actually works. And we're playing around with all the weird tools that we have. And I think the most important policy thing that we have like half experimented, because we have not experienced a whole ISO approval cycle yet, is Beman maturity model. It's I realized I have not put a Beman logo in any of my slides. So if you're curious, this is a Beman logo, and if you're curious on why this Beman logo looks so cute and what its origin is, go check out David Sanko's CEPCon talk last year. I'm really good at networking, in fact, all these talks up. And so the idea is, it starts with this black and white dragon that want to have color. That means it's under development and not yet ready for production use. When it's ready for production use, we will mark them as production ready. So that will be decided by the library author, but ideally it has production ready documentation, production ready code, production ready tests, and where people can use it for like very serious stuff. But here, because it's tied to a paper, and by the way, you cannot have a Beman project without having a paper. We can help you with initializing a paper, but you have to have a paper. So the paper might change. They may have add more revisions. They might actually get into the working draft, but somebody else's paper are gonna add to that. So in this sense, the implementation is going to be production ready. It's going to be very high quality. It's going to meet all the core principles, but it's technically still a little bit, you are on the bleeding edge. So it's going to hurt you a little bit if somebody in the ISO community says, we should really do this API design instead. And I think this is something that people say, why Beman? And because we are willing to break API for standardization, because our mission statement is to then advance the C++ standard. So maybe there's a new revision comes out, the whole thing is changed, and we need to go back and we need to add a bunch of stuff. The dragon goes to black and white and being a little bit more sad, but it will get there. It will come back to production ready, and people will use the new revision or new addition, and hopefully provide new feedback. And on and only when the working draft this library is introduced into is like officially rubber stamped as this is a C++ XX standard, does it become bright? Now that I think about it, this is a kind of weird choice, but yes, if you see this full Beman logo, it is production ready and has stable API, and it will be as high quality as really high quality libraries, and people can stick around and use it for 2 C++ release cycles, which I think we observe internally is is the lag between company adopting standard libraries. And I actually think this is, so the principal idea here is when you use Beman, you use an alias. Like if you use optional, it's stud Beman optional, and you use using optional as stud Beman optional. So later on, you can just update the using optional is stud optional. So this is like a one-line change, but if you somehow polluted your thing with Beman namespace, I think it's pretty easy to replace. I also think there's something else that could happen here, is people who be like, oh, this is a fantastic feature. I'm gonna before looking and grab this library in, and I'm gonna show us this is why we need to keep up with the standard, because this thing is so nice. And it will be really cool if that is one of the influence. I don't think we'll officially recognize that as an influence, right, David?
Recognize? I didn't understand it. Recognize what?
So like having like a production ready stable API, so people can try out the new standard library features, so they can convince people to upgrade.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
Okay, sounds good to me, but nobody knows what comes after 6 years, is when the dragon is dead, in a sense. At least for this library. Okay, I can't say it.
Okay.
Goes to Florida.
Okay. Why is it goes to Florida? I don't get this.
Where he retires.
Oh, it's a sunburn.
Yeah.
So it's like charred.
Wow.
Oh, okay. The redness of the logo is very cynical now.
FYI for everyone, this is all going to be quoted on Reddit and Twitter. So make sure you only give facts. So the burned dragon went to Florida.
Yeah, smart.
This is the Florida dragon now. Okay, this is a fantastic name. We should rename the retired to be burned or charred or Floridaized.
Oh wow.
And there's our 2 edges for early retirements. When a library implementation is like abandoned, like not enough people working on it, or is it not meeting our standards, it could be retired. And it could also be the underlying paper got rejected. So like people who think that this is all right, it doesn't work, or they just don't have enough time for it. And we standardize this by like requiring as part of our standard, the actual like front part of all the README is actually standardized to, you don't have to have these badges, but besides these 2 badges, everything is standardized. So you have to have the name, a short, concise name of it, and the library status of it, and you have to have like an explanation of what this does, what it implements, and what is status. You can see here when people come in, they can immediately see that the library status under development, the status under development and not yet ready for production use. And this is by requirement linking to our documentation, explaining what does that mean. So suit option, not suit optional. Beman optional is, I think, one of the first libraries, if not the first library, to get into this colorized happy dragon, but it's fading state. So Steve have worked on this for a long time, and his implementation is really good. I'll be talking about how Beman influenced helped his implementation later. But you can see that for him, okay, the icon is production ready, API may undergo changes, and the status is correctly displayed. And I want everybody to guess what happened to this library. I want to see how. How?
Retired. It's in Florida.
It's in Florida, yes! I actually was criticizing the icon approach because I think it has visibility issues. But if we just make it like Red Dragon, that is highly recognizable. We should assign just like a color to every single one. One is charred, one. Okay, let's not do that. So we can see that this is retired, it's Floridaized, and the status is correctly updated with a link to a documentation that explains what does this mean. Oh. So everybody gets what the Beman maturity model is, right? I think this is the most important thing that we standardize, because every time I go see David's talk, everybody asks about this. So this is the way we approach when do we break things and how do we indicate that.
I think that just a quick comment.
Yes.
I think it would be cool to also add, there's the GitHub, there's C++ GitHub that basically gives the status of papers.
Yes.
Might be worth adding a link to that so that people can go there and read the rationale and reasoning. And so if anything changes, they can also like capture that. So maybe we can, I think that would be awesome.
She is.
C++, just write C++ in GitHub and you get to the,
Yes.
and then there's the status by paper. Of course you can just search by the number, but if you can add here a link, that would direct people there.
That's a really good idea. Thank you, Ringbo, for already making Beman better within 47 minutes.
Yeah, something
So
like
you beat the 90 minutes requirements. All right.
There, I also had some contribution to the logo.
Yes, you were in the
that's
in the
fine,
sets.
that's fine.
You were one of the 46 or 47
Yeah, thank you.
distinct contributors.
I
I'm
think
really
it's a great
grateful for
logo.
you.
I think it's a great logo.
Okay. So anybody have any issues with this? Any question with this?
It's worth clarifying for the online audience, if nothing else, that if someone likes the features in this library, like they love dump, they really want dump, they can fork it, it's fine, just don't call it Beman dump, and
Yeah.
it's probably still good code, it's just not gonna be standard.
Yeah. And even on top of that, I want to add that, I'm sorry for, that if you like this feature and you go over the thread that
Oh, so
that
like
says
okay.
why this feature was not accepted, and you find rationale that is stronger, or find that your use case has not been discussed, or find some other stronger reasoning, please feel free to come back to us with.
So you can
how they will
unchar
go.
the dragon.
Yeah,
Bring it
because
out of retirement.
yeah, because the process of ISO is not like to say no to things indefinitely. The process of ISO is like, maybe this thing needs to get better, or maybe we need more rationale. So long story short, that is retired, but not, can come back from Florida.
So it's not dead, it's just retired.
It's retired as
Okay.
of now in terms of, but I would love, like, part of the thing that can be good is for people to get more involved and say like, okay, you retired this, but that's actually, I'm using this in production, it's really cool, it's helping me A, B, and C, and if it wasn't discussed, write a paper. And we'll rediscuss this.
Yes, David.
I was just going to add that, so Jonathan Mueller was the one who implemented this library. And I think and the reason it got retired is because it was rejected by the standardization committee. Totally wasn't planned this way, but this is the perfect name for an example of something that got
Yes.
retired.
Oh, I forgot the dumped joke. Oh, it got dumped.
Maybe we should rename retired to dump. Sounds offensive though. No.
So
Retired some more.
So the rewrite process got picked up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Recycle. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. And so right now I want to give some library highlights and how to contribute. I was originally intent for this section to be, I want to go through most of the major projects and talk about what to do to improve the implementation and what to do to improve the paper. But I think I found like something that could literally be done in 90 minutes, if not 30 minutes. So let me just go through the ideas that I originally had because I don't want to delete that slide. So Beman optional. Beman optional is fantastic. Steve is fantastic. I love his white hairs and beard and stuff. But he also gave a really good talk that will be available over here for the YouTube audience. I hope I'm doing it right. And his talk was on Tuesday. Who was there? Yes. So basically what he did is there is a hole left intentionally in STD optional where a reference type is it cannot hold a reference type, and this is explicitly forbidden so that they can come back and fight about the issue later on. Okay, I realize I shouldn't use 5 because this is recorded. So this is one of the first Beman project. It's currently, I think, the most matured project in our system, and it fills an intentionally left open hole in STD optional, but it also implements give optional range support. I was on call with him. I was like, okay, what can I tell people to like? I understand. So this is a way for ranges to express a one or empty ranges, and I was like, why does it have to be optional? Like, trust me. So let's just trust him. And again, I'm not an ISO member expert, so. If you're interested, go email Steve about it. He will be. I think he'll. Oh no, not email him. Create a GitHub issue. Yes, create a GitHub issue. So there's breadcrumbs, and STD optional TREF will be voted on the next plenary, and give STD optional range support is already in 2026 draft. And if you're curious, I'm just gonna give a very concise summary of like. Why TREF is not in the standard. This is for you, is because the assignment operator is, and we don't really know if we want to do rebind or write through. Okay. So this is.
Now, what does it do?
Go watch Steve's talk. I should become a YouTuber. So you can see this is a motivating example for like, for example, you have a function that originally return like a pointer, but there is actually an explicit behavior if the pointer is null, then it is nullable. You can say, oh, I want an STD optional of a cat ref, and you can then just do the if empty check. This API boundary specify that this could be empty explicitly. This was pulled directly from the paper.
So
yes.
Find cat returns a pointer?
No. Find cat returns STD optional cat ref.
Okay, so it returns, okay.
Yeah, this is better than returning a pointer. And I think on API boundaries, this is better than if you want to express a.
Would it work if it returned just a cat? Or would it?
I cannot answer this right now.
Right now that doesn't work. That's why it's a C++ 26 feature.
Okay.
There's some there's some libraries out there that are also have optionals, and they're inconsistent about what they do in some cases, which is why Steve wrote the paper.
Yeah, David.
Well, you were saying, could it return like to the optional cat as opposed to cat reference?
I was thinking just a cat actually. Or
Oh, well, the thing is, you might or might not find the cat.
okay.
Yeah.
No.
And if you return a value and this is getting cast into a reference, I don't know if they. Yeah, that will be dangling. I think in his talk he mentioned that this is somehow checked, but go watch his talk. I'm not professionals here, okay?
And you also have a lot of tests, so that's cool.
There's a lot of motivating examples in the paper too.
Okay.
And Steve is also a very motivating person. You can ask him personally. And I think this is also like, I think like this is the best example of it. Like when you access a map, and you don't want to play around with iterators. This is actually a proposal, P3091. I forgot the name of it, but basically it adds 2 functions to, well, essentially 1 function to map an unordered map where if you call get on it, it returns an optional of the reference type, so you don't have to do this thing over here, you can put it in one line, and it's all very nice, and you don't need to compare it to the end iterator because we are cool. And so this is where I think this is an example of Beman actually coming and really helping out the project. Is from according to library author that exposed his personal implementation to a wider range of audiences, to the point where somebody external actually come in and they dropped a bomb of a really big bug into the optional implementation. And it was found that this bug was also existing in I think Boost optional and other optional implementations. And I think this is also a really good quote from the library author, is I don't have to understand more GitHub actions than I need to. I think this is also why people should come in and contribute to Beman, because if you only care about implementation, let us do the dirty work. And because somehow I like that part of the dirty work. And so I asked explicitly, what can we do to progress it forward? You can always try to find defects, but there are still some leftover infrastructure cleaning work that I think is pretty easy to do. And if you can come in and help us, I'm available. My email is on the first slide, and you can second slide. You can let me know, and I can tell you what needs to be helped and stuff like that. Or can you open a GitHub issue? And Beman AnyView, I am really good at networking up talks, which will be available over here again. That supports basically a type erase range wrapper that is supposed to express. We are actually returning a range, and these are like what we are expecting from the range. Because right now, if you just do it via pure ranges, this is kind of what you have to write it as. And so this is the reason people still processing vector across like function boundaries, because there is not a really good way to express like a range of arbitrary type, unless you just concretely set it to like transform u, which then the function signature is not really like portable. So with AnyView, it's going to look like this. So it could both help on the input parameter, and also will express more information on the return value type. So this is a map function that maps from A type to a B type. And you can specify here that via templates arguments that you want the range to be like output to be an output range, to be a random access range, and so that it's like very obvious on the function boundaries. And again, quoting the library author again, the library author says, and I have a community that is obliged to talk to me. And I think instead of seeing this as like, oh no, I gotta listen to a folk that his whole personality is AnyView, which his whole personality is not only AnyView, but think about that. There is a person in our community who is so interested in AnyView that he goes through all the trouble and he goes through all the understanding to implement that. You want to talk to that person. That sounds fascinating, at least to me. And so we are building up our community, is what I'm saying. And the library author is looking for more use case examples of AnyView. So if somebody can, so this kind of goes back to what I was saying is, after I ask all the library authors, and how can I progress the implementation forward, and how can I progress the paper forward, everybody says, just show me your use case, either just in pet products, in your pet project, or your whatever environment. Just show us your use case and tell us, oh, I like this in this use case, or no, I don't really find this useful. Stuff like this can be done in way less than 90 minutes, and it's interesting to hack around, and we have all the tools for you to hack around. And there's a lot more. Denmark has done a lot of talks on this. I am scared about all the executions and sender receivers, so I'm not gonna try to explain his project. So go check out his project. he was also saying that he was looking out for use case examples and just people coming and testing out the code.
I just because it's important. There have been people working on this for 10 years.
Yes.
Dietmar have his implementation, and that's awesome. And Dietmar did contributed a lot, and specifically the lazy task is. But this Sanders Siever's project is
Okay.
been
So
going on for 10 years, and
so in a sense there are implementation variants that you can go out and check out, and maybe you can find cool stuff over there, because when you have multiple implementations, you can find really cool stuff. So basically, if you are interested in helping any individual library that is already in the Beman project, all library authors are looking for real-world use cases, and you will use examples of their libraries. So if you just open up an issue, or if this gets too big, we have a big meta issue, or if you can just go in and go to the Discord and say, oh, I tried this out. We'll be very happy about it, and you are actually helping out, and not just blabbing everything. Something else that everybody said is, this is actually a really good time to contribute a new library, because 26 is feature freeze, and 29 is in the distant future, but not so distant. This is a perfect time for Beman to help. What is a library feature that everybody's looking forward to? No. Yes.
Align.
Yes, because you have an allied implementation in Beman. Everybody go check this out. Yes, Eddie.
I'm looking forward to UTF view.
Yes.
who is working on that one?
Who is working on that one? Go check out UTF.
That's actually an idea.
Yes. So in the sense that if you want to write your own implementation, I think we're welcome for competing implementations, and we just have to figure out how to do this in the build part. But yeah, maybe you can see how smart Eddie is, or you can tell Eddie how smart you are by implementing a better UTF view. Yes, I think there was another hand. Scan?
I've seen that.
I actually don't know what scan is.
It's like a format in reverse.
Oh! I know what you're talking about. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, David.
I was going to say a command line parser library.
Yes.
There's an
Got
example
reflection
in
now, so
there's an example in Meta, like the very, but it's not great because you can't, like, there's not good way to make sure that the input is correct and verify and things like that. So I really think you're right.
Yes, David.
I would just add to that. I mean, with reflection, there's so many libraries that we need to catch up with,
I
Mhm.
like command line parsing. There's
agree.
serialization.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much open space for people to contribute to this
Yeah.
standard.
So much more Beman libraries, and so much more nerdy folks and to talk to, and me as CVP now, right? And please come to CVP now if you are very, very interested in Beman, because I think all the tooling talks and a lot of the library talks, maybe it's because my own bias, I think is using Beman in some way to do a proof of concept, or just say, oh, that library or this library that I implement. I think it's fantastic. The fact that you can talk to, there are so many Beman contributors here. So I want to talk about the workflow for creating your own Beman project, because this is where I contributed a lot. And I hope this is a sign of my technical competence, so you can hire me, or a sign of my juniority, which I would very much appreciate, because then you can come in and teach me how to actually do things correctly. Thank you, Brett Brown. And so Beman.exemplar is a minimum C++ library that's conforming to the Beman standard. That, like, for example, how we format the README, at least the front part, is coded in rule for Beman project in the Beman standard. And this is, in principle, to use as a template for GitHub. But GitHub's template is really not a template, it's just a fancy clone. So exemplar implements this fascinating function. Can everybody tell me what this function does?
It returns whatever it's given.
Yes, this is an identity function, because we don't care about the C++ front of this. This is a purely infrastructure, or this is a how do I create the best avoid C++. Yes.
It also materializes PR values.
Which is a
Okay.
fancy way to say that.
Okay. So much to learn. So much to learn.
Yes.
But it's actually useful as a base case in certain kinds of algorithms where you have to get to the end, and the end thing is like, well, forget it, don't do anything. That's the don't do anything operator.
Okay, everybody, you need to be relying on Beman.exemplar. And so this is the flow, the workflow for bootstrapping a new library look like. I am personally working on a script to make this a more conversational project, but right now you use this template on GitHub and create a GitHub repo. You clone it or use the dev container, which I'll talk about later on. That is basically a VS Code in the web, on the web, and you go in, you replace all the exemplar keyword across your library with your name of choosing, scanned, charred, Florida, and you update the source files to your own implementation or a skeletal free implementation. You update the CMake reference in the source directory so that the build system knows that these are the new source files. And then you run linter. For the first time, you're probably gonna have some complaints about your name maybe like made a line too long, so some reformat to run, but it's fine. And this is the file structure of exemplar. And we can see that over here are the usual stuff that people care about. And here are the stuff that usual people don't care about. But here, right now, we care about these because I want to tell you about what infrastructure we have provided for you guys. By the way, this structure is required by the Beman standard as well. This allows us to do tooling for you portably across Beman. And I would like to come in and talk about CMake first, because that is the first thing I want to get out of. By saying everybody should go check out Brad Brown's talk on Monday. It will be here. I really hope this works out. he actually presented at like, okay, how do you actually write a CMake project? And almost step by step, through exemplar, why did we write these CMake lines? And what does these mean? And miss sharp edges. A key takeaway here is passive projects. We, as Beman projects, we are meant to be passive in the sense that we don't have opinions against compiler options in a CMake C++ flags way. And we don't have any opinions for CMake C++ standard in our CMake files. And if you're interested in the reason why, go watch Brad Brown's talk. I think he fully convinced me that this is the correct way to do things. And you only define what?
I have a question.
Yes.
Does Beman guarantee that the library implementations are warning-free, at least for the major warnings?
I think that
What's
yeah.
our CI set up?
It's a quality of implementation. I think in a sense that we can definitely see this, like, I think we should definitely think of this and strive toward having our implementations not have warnings so that you can use them in production. But it
When
is
it's in production,
Yeah, David.
no, I mean like so that you can. Some people are turning on the warning all flags.
Like, even if they don't get
Sorry.
standardized with that.
Yeah.
Yes, David.
So basically, there's no requirement in our standard which says you need to pass warnings or errors. And generally, when you create a project that you want to be able to send out to anybody, you don't want to have that set by default because they may end up using a newer compiler that you didn't have back then, which introduces more warnings. So the idea is to make it generally usable and very high quality. So we might enable, W error on CI or something like that, just to make sure that we, not because we want to be warning free, but because we want to be defect free, right?
Yeah.
But for consumers, I don't think that we'd want to require something like that.
We do have the warnings turned all the way up. We do
Yes.
have the hang tidy turned all the way up. We
Okay.
use the new versions of everything.
That's great.
You can't be warnings free because you'll upgrade to C++. You'll get GCC 15 before we do, maybe, right? So
Yes.
Yeah,
So in the back.
just one comment on
Yes.
error-free and stuff. Like, say, I can imagine that many of the Beman libraries are header only or interface library, and then if you enable those stuff in CMake, that will be spread to all stuff like this linked against. So you should be very careful with that.
yeah.
Okay. I also want to, because I'm kind of running short on time here. I want to directly reply to you that a lot of the projects, some of the projects you're going to be working on is going to be very cutting edge to the compiler, and some of them, the compiler is going to complain because because some of the library features come with language features, and And if they haven't teach the compiler a trick yet, it actually makes sense to do like currently a defect way to do things. Not defect, but like currently emulating the way in the sense that they provide warnings. We're on the cutting edge. So yeah, compiler is not necessarily your friend. So the key point takeaway is detect-centered compatibility via check-CX source compiles. If you really want to do it in CMake land, I've been convinced that you should do it as a macro in the source file. And we define CMake C++ version in the preset in the toolchain level. So I'm going to talk about something that I did that I semi-understand. CMake preset. How many people use CMake preset in this room? Okay, good. It is. When it's working, it's actually really nice because instead of doing the whole CMake configure, CMake build, and C test, you can just write this, and you don't have to remember what CMake arguments you need to put in. And we provide a combination between compilers and build configuration, so it will be GNU, LVM, AppleCon, MSVC, and dash release or debug. And we might have, there might be an extra factor of packaging coming soon. So debug presets, I think I need to say this to all the potential Beman exemplar users. We enable as much sanitizer as we can for the debug use case. So because threat sanitizer usually doesn't work well with address sanitizers, and it's kind of rare for Beman Project to need to use threat sanitizer. So the default debug is max sanitizer, address sanitizer, and everything that's not conflicting with address sanitizer. So for GCC, it will be address, leak, pointer compare, pointer subtract, undefined sanitizers. So if this does cause your build to be very slow, and if you're working on a really big project, you might want to tweak it. It's in the toolchain file in the CMake directory. And now I'm going to talk about linting. Because this tool is fantastic. Pre-commit. How many people know pre-commit? Good. This is I already saw this is not a industry standard tool, but after I've used it, I see it everywhere. And this is basically a pre-commit hook manager. So if you don't know, you can declare pre-commit hooks into Git that before I commit, execute this bash shell. Usually people write shell scripting that, and this is basically a modern version of it, and it has a fantastic way to declare your dependencies for linters, for refactors, and it tells you like what it has done, and it can handle like, oh, refactor, reformat this, but don't actually apply it, and it does all the Git magic underneath it. And you can install it so that when you run git commit, this gets run before that, but that does cause sometimes some edge cases between two conflicting change lists that keeps formatting back and forth. If you want to install it, you need to know how to disable it, and it can be manually run by running pre-commit, which I personally recommend. So this is how the configuration file looks like. This is pretty standard, and you can actually, like, this is why I like pre-commit. You can pull this clone format down, and it's gonna be specific to your library that you are working on. It's not gonna be the clone format that your system is. This is fantastic package so that you can declare that v18.1.a is the exact clone format version, and you can pull it down. You have a fantastic tooling system. And because I heard a lot of people asking for like CMake linting and CMake formatting, this Black Sprouts fantastic library that I don't know how to pronounce, okay. The G library is what I found personally to be a fantastic CMake linting tool. And I wanna do a PSA now that double check if your linter is maintained, because it was a lot of pain for me to actually find linters and formatters that are correctly maintained. Like there are projects, especially on CMake linting, where you have projects that haven't been updated in like 4 years, and projects that are actively looking for maintainers. I think this is a space where this whole industry is lacking investment into. So if you have extra hands and you would like to work on some of those projects, I will very much recommend you go help out those folks as well, because I think they need help by the amount of CMake linter that got discarded. And so this is, the G library is what I would recommend. This is what configured for exemplar, and it's a very simple formatter, but it has a very limited configuration space. It is touted as a feature, and I fully for it. It works great. And oh, I didn't update the slides correctly. For Markdown linked, it has a fantastic ecosystem. They both support pre-commit natively, and both Markdown linked CLI and Markdown linked are supported, are actively maintained and actively acknowledges each other. And this is, I think, the secret weapon we have for linting. This is review dog. What it does is, you see, if you go for CMake linting, files are modified by this hook. So it reformatted for you. So we can take a diff out of this reformat, and we can shove it to the review doc, and it can create wonderful GitHub action-based reviews that have the suggestion. And you can just click commit suggestion, and you can fix it. You just need to be very careful that you might want to have like a rate limit on it, which we haven't implemented yet. But for very large diffs, it's actually pretty intruding, and you will hit GitHub's rate limit. And you also, like, for anybody interested in implementing their own workflow, it has a special permission thing that you need to use pull request target as the event. And I want to talk about dev container. There's not that much to talk about this here, but it's fantastic. It's basically a developer environment running the web. It's a VS Code, and we write our own Docker image so that we guarantee that the dev container works, and it has. In the future, when packaging comes in, the packages are going to be correctly installed. And you only need to invoke the CMake preset. However, we have met some problems with CodeSpace. CodeSpace does not cache the Docker container that is built, so you need to endure from 3 to 5 minutes of build time. I tried building the containers alone, standalone, but you will imagine GitHub packages for Docker and GitHub CodeSpace will be living by the in the same rack, but apparently not. The polling speed is really slow, so there's something that we need to report to upstream. But generally, if you can wait 3 minutes, this is actually a lot better if you are just playing around with a project, because sometimes because we require a pretty high CMake version, and sometimes we require a really recent compiler. If you don't want to trash up your environment, this is the way to go. Or a compiler explorer, which is fantastic. So the last segment of my exemplar is CI. Everything needs to be automatically tested. I think this have to be said. So I have spent like the last half year of my senior year to work on this, to work out the jank of how can I design this, but probably Brett Brown will have a way better way to do this. So this is currently a little bit unstable, but I want to do another PSA that if you have a scheduled CI test, you should write a script, which I think we should package it, but you should write a script that opens the GitHub issue to the owning repo. In the previous open source project I worked on when I was seeing RPI, I have seen schedule build that keep failing for a week without anybody noticing it. And this every single commit, I think this is pretty industry standard. And we're refactoring our CI workflow, so I think I hope all the premise stays, but how it's actually done might be different. So this is the current implemented unit testing matrix. We support from all three platforms that GitHub Action supports, Windows, Mac OS, Linux. And we support across compilers. GCC, Clang is probably going to be the most, it's probably going to be the two compilers compilers that you support. But when your project gets bigger, and you want to go into the pain spot of MSVC or even AppleCon, you can just write it into the matrix and we'll support it. And testing across versions, the default is 17 to 23. We do not have a lowest CMake, we do not have a lowest C++ version across Beman as a requirement. And testing across different CMake arguments, we ship with default with thread sanitizer with address sanitizer. And this is the config. So this is the standard GitHub action matrix where currently the way I structure is you define the platform you want, define the CPP version you want, define the CMake arguments you want, and GitHub does its magic of doing the combination explosion for you. Right now, this matrix generates, I think, 67 build tasks for testing an identity function. I think the PR value thing is working. And this is another PSA which I'm kind of fascinated by how in the industry people don't do this. Maybe it's because I'm naive and I'm a new grad. Well, cross-compiler version test is always, you want that because you want to be able to tell people this is the range of major compilers we support. And we also test our CMake preset to make sure they work. And I also think everybody should test their CMake build arguments. You don't have to verify if you can be cherry on top, you can verify that the produced output is what you want. But just checking it builds, I think, is way better than not checking it. So just have a pipeline where you build all the variants of your build arguments. I know there's combination explosion, but I do think people should be testing CMake build arguments as a configure and build step. Summary, I hope this is a good enough Beman Project introductions. We talked about why and what Beman Project is, and and in 90 minutes, if this 90 minutes means listening to my talk, I hope you can find another 90 minutes to work on this. But if you only have 90 minutes, go check out the libraries, give the library author some love, play around with it, and play it in dev containers, in compiler explorers, and create issues, and say this is my use case. And tell people that, oh, do you know you can preview the C++ 26 or even 29 feature in the future, and you can talk to people on Reddit about it or talk to your friend and family about it. Not friend and family, maybe friends, but not family because they start sleeping. Yes. Yeah, and to try it out, and we really hope to get this network effect start to go, and this will be fantastic. And I think this will be a way more accessible way for us to engage in the standardization process. And of course, there are other ways to engage in it, but I think this is for a person of just graduated is the best thing. I realize I forgot to mention this, but I do highly encourage students to come to work with. Well, I can be your mentor, and I think folks here wouldn't mind. Okay, maybe, I don't know. But Beman Project is actually perfect for students because there are a lot of, if you are interested in tooling, we have a lot of dirty works and just simple tooling stuff we need to get down. That's how I learned a lot of CMake, and that's how I learned a lot of GitHub Actions, even though I had a lot of knowledge with it, but building that CI pipeline in a single pipeline was horrifying. And you learn a lot. And if you dare, or if you're interested to contribute to your own implementation, I will tell you that's the best thing to learn C++. From what I think, is because your problem space is well defined. The hard part is done. The designing part is done. The only thing you need to do is you need to get good at C++. And you have excellent communities.
So the hard part is
Well, I mean, to a student, I think the designing part is even more challenging because, still today, I look at function signatures, DAC types and template specializations. Why does it look like this? And actually implement it and give you a better understanding of how stuff actually works. And no, in-place factor does not work as, it does work as what we teach in school, but it has a lot more edge cases than you think it has. And we have a group of experts that and also paper authors was very interested in what you do and will be very happy to help you with implementing extended library stuff. And it does look, well, I guess this pans out, but I do think it looks good on resumes because you're actually contributing value and impact to your future. Because I personally will probably be using in-place factor 10 years down the road when I'm like, I hope I'm in the industry. So like being forward-looking and learning these is definitely gonna help. And again, this doesn't necessarily only apply to students, but I do want to pitch this specifically for students. And again, thank you. My name is River, and this is my email. I'm looking for a job, please. Local Walmart is not hiring, and Burger King is, so I will be happy working at Burger King for a while. And if you prefer LinkedIn, if you see that is my full legal name, just you will see I posted. I will be talking at CVP now, and you will be looking at the reference. Yes.
Great talk. Where can I get one of those shirts?
You need to ask Jeff. I've been keep asking Jeff, and he says he will give the shirts out to those who deserves.
Whoa!
So I do not wish to get into this volume. Okay, we should have cut that out. By the way, let's cut that out. Let's make sure we cut that out because yes, the shirts. Go ask Jeff. I really want to give out Beman shirts at my conference, but not my conference at my talk. But Jeff said, well, ask Jeff. You make sure you cut that out. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Any feedback for the talk?
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
I just love the config file that you showed at the end. I would actually hope for you to talk about this a bit more because this is really just by itself, it's really a great contribution. Sometimes the nice thing about modern tools is that you show one file, it looks like a few lines, but it's actually doing so much
Yes.
behind the scenes. So that's awesome. Thank you. I would love to talk with you later about the testing
Yes.
practices, but that's not necessarily here.
Okay. Anybody's team's hiring? Anybody knows who's knows somebody who's hiring?
I have an actual question also.
Yes.
How involved is Beman with language features?
So we don't have like a strict guard against it. Brown actually proposed a new main function entry. My take, which David and Brett can chime in, is if you can emulate it with like right now macro or in the future reflection, I think you are fine.
Yeah, so generally speaking, the way language features are currently being proposed, just like a reflection is a great example, is that someone's forking their favorite compiler, let's say Clang or something, hypothetically, and they just implement that on a branch. Now, we have talked about it a bit, but I don't know what like David's or other people's opinion, but I think there's no major barrier for basically having the whatever project that you have, to fork Clang and then add on top of that a layer of your code or whatever you need, and then you could actually also use the CI and other utilities. So I don't see a major issue with that.
David.
But it does add
sorry.
some complexity, so it's not like prepared for, like the project is not prepared for that, but once the first major language or minor language feature would come up, we can definitely adjust. I mean, I don't see any problem with that.
I was just going to say that part of the Beman Project's motivation was to solve the problem that the reference implementations we'd get of libraries that are proposed, the quality was very variable. You'd have really great quality stuff like Executor had a great implementation, and then you have stuff that's just like something in a godbolt, and that was the only implementation experience. And the same exact problem happens with language features, right? So reflection was awesome, and then I'm not going to mention any names about ones that don't have any implementation whatsoever. Like
You can call me.
because
I don't think it's recording
I don't want to
anymore.
call that out.
Oh, you want this?
But it would
I
be great
survived.
if we could get that as well at some point. So I think Beman could potentially evolve into that, but right now the focus is on standard libraries because we know how to do that. That we can do.
Okay.
But David, there's no like, at least I don't see any major reason why not to.
Our mission statement is on civil
I
standards.
mean, if
Yes.
it fits in the CI and you're not blowing up our build farm by building LLVM over and over again, or if you're paying for the build farm, but so yeah, things like I think River's right. Things that you can emulate with a library or a macro, and it would be a language feature when it's finished. Would be interesting.
What if I
So,
can,
like a new
very
attribute and it's,
emulate it, but not 100%, right? Just,
I
So
mean,
they can do
it could be 100%, but you'd have to have your own implementation. Now, some things you could implement with like a claim tidy or something like that. That's pretty niche though. A lot of the language features, they want to be a little more into the guts of how C++ works, like reflection.
yeah.
But there is a reflection build out there. If someone wanted to volunteer to get that in one of River's style containers, people could start writing some reflection libraries based on that implementation. That would be really
I think the
really
short
interesting.
answer is you could use reflection to simulate your language feature. That's great. If you can't, we're also open for Clang fork, and it's going to be a bit harder to get into the pipeline, but it's not like a hard no in any way.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
it's just like two approaches that you can
Sides
take.
can-
Yeah.
Short answer is talk to us later.
Okay, alright.
You know, we're just making sure. Yeah, if anybody didn't get that, you can come to our weekly sync and we can talk about it. We can make a Discord thread about it. If you're shy, I can make a Discord thread for you. It's just there is a chance that nobody replies because it's too long.
That's right.